Holistic mission. I've kind of stumbled into the world of holistic mission pretty much through a back door, really. I was just going about my day job. I'm a Presbyterian minister, so I was doing what I do, and that is reading the Bible, studying it, preparing to teach it to the people in my community. I'm a minister on a Presbyterian church on the Newtonards Road in East Belfast, and that's my job. I teach people there God's Word in the Bible, and that's where I came across holistic mission. I wasn't long in the Bible teaching business before I realised the centrality of discipleship. When Jesus walked on this earth, he called a bunch of guys to follow him and to be his disciples, to learn from him how to live. Now, the word disciple is not one that we understand all that well in our culture, probably. I think the closest parallel or the best analogy is probably to talk about an apprentice. Jesus was looking for people who would be his apprentices, who would follow him, people who would watch what he did and learn to do the same things, people who would listen to what he said and learn to say the same things. This is what Jesus wanted as he was on the earth here. So he called these 12 guys to follow him, to be his disciples, and then he sent them out into the world and he said, go and teach the rest of the world to do the same. Teach them how to live this life that I've taught you. Holistic mission is what Jesus called his disciples to. When you read in the Gospels, the Gospel writers are all agreed about the holistic nature of Jesus' ministry. So for example, when you read in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, where Matthew introduces us to Jesus' public ministry, he says, Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, healing every disease and sickness among the people. In Jesus' ministry, his words explained his actions, and his actions gave power to the words that he taught. The two went together. They were inseparable. Jesus always intended that his disciples would have the same kind of holistic ministry. We see it in Matthew chapter 10. It's an interesting chapter. It's a bit like an evangelism training seminar that Jesus runs for his disciples. He tells them how he wants them to go and reach out with the good news. He says to them, as you go, preach this message. The kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. So Jesus turns to these guys, these apprentices of his, and he says, go and teach the same things that I taught, and do the same things that you saw me doing. Do the whole lot. It's important to notice what Jesus doesn't say when he commands his disciples to go out with the good news of the kingdom. He doesn't say to them, go out there and preach the gospel and save souls. He doesn't say to them, whatever you do, don't help people or heal the sick, because that would be simply a waste of time. Jesus wants them to go out and minister in a full and a whole way, in the same way that he did. Do both. He says, preach and heal your community. We often struggle in the Christian church to get this balanced ministry of Jesus, to understand it and to embrace it and to live it out. I think of my experience in Ulster evangelicalism. I grew up in a community that was very strong in preaching the gospel, longing for people to be saved. The truth is, we were probably very happy to ignore most or all of the other needs of the people that we were dealing with. There's possibly another temptation around today, maybe among a younger generation, where we are so focused as Christians on showing the love of God and dealing with felt needs that we forget to deal with the biggest need of all, and that is to see people reconciled to God through Jesus Christ. We need to learn to do all of these things, to hold them in balance, to deal with all of the needs that the people around us have. And those needs are, first of all, their alienation from God, then their alienation from themselves, their alienation from each other, and then their alienation from the environment in which we live. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the answer to all of these needs, and we need to learn to present it as such. As a minister in a local church, I suppose I'm interested in how this holistic mission is going to work out in our local context. So recently I started preaching a series in our church life about this. I began by teaching again the Good Samaritan, the parable of the Good Samaritan, and I was really struck as I was preaching at how the priest and the Levite, I am the priest. I was really struck again that I am the Levite. They're the guys, if you remember, they passed by on the other side when they saw a man beaten up and lying on the road. They just walked on by, and I realized that's exactly what I do. If I see trouble in my own community, I just ignore it often. And then it struck me as well that often I don't even see the trouble in my own community because I'm so used to maybe just being in my own middle-class evangelical bubble that I don't even know what's going on around me. If we're going to get involved in holistic mission, we're going to have to get out of that middle-class bubble where we don't know what's going on around us. We're going to have to inform ourselves of the real issues and the real needs in our society. In order to help me to do that and to prepare for the teaching I was doing in church, I spent a bit of time researching poverty in Northern Ireland. I spent a bit of time reading a Bernardo's report on child poverty. I came across a story of Karen, a young single mum living in Tullycarnet. That's a housing estate a couple of miles up the road from our church. Karen spoke about how she had never been able to take her children swimming because she couldn't afford the transport. She said, "I want my children to be happy, well educated, and for them to have goals which they can achieve, and I want for them not to think that they're not good enough." I asked our congregation that Sunday morning to think about what a holistic mission to somebody like Karen would look like. We thought about it and we thought, well, of course we'd want her to be able to take her kids swimming. Absolutely. We'd want for her kids to be well educated and to be happy, goals, and to have a sense that they might be able to achieve them. We would want for them, yes, to think that they are good enough. But we'd want something more for them. We'd also want them to come to know Jesus Christ. So it's a holistic gospel that we want for Karen and her family in Tullycarnet. Is because we believe that holistic mission is an integral part of Christian discipleship. We're just not content anymore to be a church with a limited or a scaled down version of what Jesus has called us to. We want to be whole disciples of His and to be involved in the whole mission that He calls us to.